on to WWE, and Ilja Dragunov is no longer with the company. This news broke yesterday by Mike Johnson over at PW Insider, who reported that Dragunov's contract had expired and he was removed from the internal roster this week. Fightful Select then confirmed the report, and WWE itself has more or less confirmed all of this by moving Dragunov to the alumni section of the website. Had a fair run, he signed in 2019 and was one of the sort of big talents of the NXT UK brand, ending Walter's massive 870-day run with the UK title, which is still one of, his most celebrated matches, I think, of the entire tenure with WWE. Then he moved to American NXT, held that title for about 200 days, called up to the main roster after WrestleMania 40, with a run that ended almost immediately with a torn ACL at a live event, missing over a year. And you'll remember this way, he came back on SmackDown last October, immediately winning the US Championship from Sami, who at the point was doing the Open Challenge thing as a babyface. And then he made that Open Challenge run his own, defending it 8 times against the likes of Tommaso Ciampa, who was still there at the time, Carmelo Hayes, Aleister Black, losing the title to Hayes in December. And from there, he essentially vanished. He did have a rematch with Hayes in January, a Rumble Royal, you can tell what time of night it is for me, Royal Rumble performance, entrance. And then again, we didn't really see him. He was in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal before WrestleMania, but that's almost 4 months ago at this point. He's still only 32. And because we think this was an expiry rather than a release, there's likely no 90-day non-compete, which would make him a free agent who's able to appear right away. So I guess the question is, where does he land and how quickly?
Yeah, I mean, so first, he is extremely talented. I thought he was able to show that, during that US title run. And he brought a level of intensity. I mean, that's his whole gimmick. It's just intensity, right? Almost like at some point it kind of became like almost a caricature of like, here's a really intense man, like in these backstage scenes, right? And that it all means like, he is good enough that like you can put him on the card against somebody and you might salivate at the match, which makes him a completely perfect fit for AEW. Why didn't it work out in WWE? I think it comes down to size. And that's the only thing you could really suggest. If he was as tall as Trick Williams, yeah, sure. But he kind of falls in the category of somebody like a Carmelo Hayes, great worker in ring, like decent character, but it's still big man's company. And like, according to some of these reports, you of course have to look at where the TKO company is right now and how much they are paying its talents. Meltzer reported that he was said to have had a good contract. And when somebody's up for renegotiation, they're probably looking for more. But even in this case, even if they're looking for the same, you don't know if this is a company that's willing to pay people the same. They're asking people to take pay cuts. And for all of those reasons, maybe you can understand why Dragunov, maybe it was his decision to leave, or maybe just, essentially might have been forced out because he didn't like the offer, whatever that might have been. Also would explain why they wouldn't have featured him for several months if they recognized he wasn't coming back, right? Or was unwilling to sign. He's a perfect fit for AEW, so they could gain a lot from him. But WWE, I don't think would miss him. It's just not the type of company where like a guy like him would be able to thrive when they have bigger projects or other projects that I think are more suited for that. They don't need another US champion. It doesn't seem like it's that important to them. It could be. He could be a star in WWE if given the chance, if the promotion was kind of built around that sort of thing, but it's not right now. Can he be a major star at AEW? Will he be a difference maker in AEW? I think that too is another question, because AEW themselves have so many people that are still developing, or at least still like trying to reach from that mid-card position to a higher position. Like, where is a Tommaso Ciampa at this point? several months into his WWE run. Solid mid-carder, right? You know, and is Dragunov likely to achieve beyond that? Maybe. Like, he's younger, you know, he's fresher.
He's quite, you know, he's only 32. I think that works in his favor quite a bit. And it may be, there's a lot of speculation here that, you know, not just about money, but he feels at this point just completely underused. The other place my mind went was the reduction again of SmackDown back to 2 hours, where they simply don't have, you know, one of the things we enjoyed, one of the few things we enjoyed about the 3 hour era was the tag division last year, and they would generally have one really good banger of a proper work rate match, and it might be Axiom, it might have been the Machine Guns, who've gone as well, and this guy was in that mix because he's such a good professional wrestler. Maybe they're just looking at their product at the moment and thinking, it's not what we're about.
Yeah. Do you think he'll be where do you think he'll be slotted in AEW? I think, assuming he goes there.
I'm going to assume he does go there. That's where I see. I don't think he'll go to TNA. I don't see him going to a WWE adjacent company.
I think Tony would love him, and
me too.
Would welcome him with wide open arms. Yeah.
That was my next sentence. Yes, Tony, I think will really want this guy. So I think bring him in. I think we know the AEW fan base, generally speaking, will want to see tremendous wrestling matches, and that's what this guy can do. The character stuff is, yeah, as you said, like, it's just, he's a super intense guy. By all means, bring that with him. That's probably all he really needs.
How high up the card, though, do you see Ilja Dragunov?
I could see his ceiling being something like the national championship, you know, on entry, which is kind of not saying a lot, to be honest. Yeah, because even when you get to the TNT title, that's a big, that's Kyle. That's a big, at the moment, shoes to fill. So I don't know. I think, and they're saying
like, like Mark Davis. So it's Andrade that's champion, right? National champion right now.
I mean, the two of them that would be a
But like pair him with the Mark Davis, like, yeah, that's awesome. You know, as a guy to just like put on the card and just show the graphic and be like, I want to see that match on a Wednesday. Like, he's perfect for that.
Yeah.
But I think it remains to be seen, you know, how much further he will get from just being that guy. You know, like you could say the same thing about Commander. You could say the same thing about Bandito, and all these guys are incredibly valuable. Are they difference makers to the company in the way that, like, you know, your Kyle Fletchers and Swerves and Kenny Omegas are? Can Ilja Dragunov reach that level? I think that's a bigger question, and it's not due to talent. It's due to whether or not they have the space to accommodate, you know, somebody at that level. But I want to see it. Like, I want to see him be given that fair chance. And I want, like, you know, the path to becoming a world champion, I think, is much more realistic for him in AEW than it is for WWE. He will get those chances. So I hope it happens, and I look forward to seeing it.
We are wrapping up the summer big on the Post Wrestling Cafe as John Pollock and Neil Flanagan are flying to London, England for live on-the-ground coverage of AEW All in London. Also this month, we conclude our reviews of Dark Side of the Ring and WWE Unreal Season 3, reviews of ROH's Death Before Dishonor and TNA Lockdown, Rewind Away will cover the WWF Aggression album, and Book Club will cover Total Nonstop Agony by Vince Russo. Sign up now at postwrestlingcafe.com.